The whole country shifted to the right. So
and that's been
talk about that. Don't bring up Trump. It's not about Donald Trump. I know you don't like. We all know. We know you don't like Donald Trump. We know. We get it.
No, I'm gonna explain all what it means about Democrats. I'll note it actually. It's all about. It's almost all about what the Democrats were perceived as opposed to what the alternative was. Okay, so it's really going to focus on Democrats, which will be perfect for you. It was mostly about, from what I can tell, a lack of turnout among people who would have voted for Democrats. So if you look in like really Democratic areas, they didn't turn out to offset the conservative areas as they had in the Biden election. The reason for that is whenever Trump was president and people were upset about the pandemic, the response, the backlash to that was, we're going to put in the other guy. And then, as we've seen nationwide across, this is the biggest variable. There's a bunch of smaller variables as well. But the biggest variable is that across Western countries, we've seen this backlash to incumbents for the pandemic-related conditions, namely prices going up. Now, the United States, I have to throw this in, I'm sorry, has handled inflation much more effectively than our wealthy country counterparts. We brought down inflation much faster than, again, our counterparts across the world. I think Biden-Harris policies have been generally really solid on managing the economy. We came out of the pandemic much more effectively than any other country on the globe. And the unfortunate thing was, though, all those pandemic conditions and recovery efforts that any president would have engaged in, Trump did too, ended up setting up, and supply chain problems and the war in Ukraine, it all contributed to worldwide inflation. And that ended up being blamed on incumbents, right wing and left wing across the world.
You mentioned Ukraine.
Let's round that out. So I think this is less about people loving what Trump's offering and more about people rejecting an incumbent because they've been misled about what the cause of prices going up was.
So you mentioned Ukraine as a cause of inflation, and that's something that there's a fairly clear distinction between the right and the left about, is Ukraine overall.
But I mentioned that. So let's go there. I love that conversation. But let's just really solidify. Let's ignore Ukraine because that's not the most important part. It was recovery efforts, supply chain problems, and the economic aftermath of the pandemic that Trump would have dealt with too if he'd gotten a second term. That's the main causes of inflation.
He loves gay crane.
And corporate price gouging because people were expecting inflation, so they did it.
That's ridiculous. So now, what did you say?
I just said he loves gay crane, just a little.
It's ridiculous they did it, or ridiculous that I said they did it?
Yeah, it's ridiculous that you say that it was corporate price gouging. Yeah. So,
I mean, that's just what happened. They increased prices more than inflation necessitated.
I don't think that that's the case. But anyways, the point being, like, I wanted to bring up Ukraine. There's a distinct, left and right divide when it comes to Ukraine, right?
Wait,
and so
I feel like your audience is gonna it'll be a disservice to them. Can y'all explain, if Biden was so bad for inflation, why we brought it down so much faster than all of our?
I didn't say that Biden was so bad for inflation.
Okay.
I think
so. You agree the
inflation,
American public misdiagnosed why inflation happened?
No, I don't. Don't put words in my mouth. The government is bad about inflation. The government prints.
America did really good handling compared to everyone else.
The federal government prints dollars, and both the Biden administration and the Trump administration spent plenty of money. Those things are
my point is that
unquestionable.
They nailed the recovery. They did amazing. Biden-Harris did amazing getting us out of the pandemic.
No, they didn't.
Crisis.
So
they did amazing.
No, they didn't.
They did amazing getting us out of Afghanistan.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't do. They didn't do amazing.
And y'all have misled people about why grocery prices are high. That's my point.
That's.
And if grocery prices weren't high, we would have not voted for Trump. That's why it's happened.
You asked all ridiculous.
You asked why Trump won.
I didn't ask.
It got a little boring. I need to spice it up.
This is. I didn't ask anything like this.
No, you asked why Trump won. I'm telling you, it's because of mostly people were pissed about prices, and I'm saying they were wrong about the cause of it. They were right that it was happening, and they should have voted.
What's the cause of it?
So listen, I asked for your opinion, and you gave it. I think that actually, instead of moving on to Ukraine, Isabella, you've been fairly quiet. What is your sense as to why there has been a shift to the right?
I think that there's left-wing infighting where there's the really progressives that kind of tell them that they can't speak to these certain people, like something that you do. You speak to people like us, right? That's okay. But that coupled with, I think, wokeness is a big driver. You even see people, like even just celebrities that are generally leftist. Like even I just saw Perez Hilton, who's obviously like very gay, very leftist, liberal kind of guy. He's sick of the wokeness. Bill Maher talks about the wokeness. People on the left, it's getting more popular. I think people see things for their eyes, or for instance, with kids, like people that have kids in schools, they don't want their daughter to have to go into a locker room or a bathroom with a man dressing as a woman, right? These things that people try to gaslight us and say, oh, you're just fear mongering. Oh, you're transphobic. It's like, no, I just want to be able to go to the bathroom without a guy in there. So I think wokeness is
That's
a
exactly
y'all have been
why
really
I made the
successful
distinction earlier between progressives and Democrats. I feel like Democrats would tend to agree with you, at least on this particular issue. Democrats would generally tend to agree with you. I think there's some kind of numbers like 75% of America thinks that the bathrooms should be, at least for women, like there shouldn't be trans women in women's bathrooms.
Right.
Men can deal with trans men in men's bathrooms. It's not an issue.
And in sports too, women's sports, obviously, people are seeing their daughters have to compete with men.
But these are progressive issues as opposed to what I think would be Democrat basic
Let's
issues.
be fair. Nobody is like, if a Blair White or a
Tranny
Brianna Wu is like walking into a bathroom, right? I would never call the police or anything like that. And it was never a thing. I worked in a bar and we would have tranny
Who
women.
made it a thing?
Wait, hold on. It was never a thing. There was tranny women coming into bathrooms.
the wrong
Fine.
word to use.
It is the ones that look like that Jeffrey creepy Marsh dude, okay? The ones that aren't fully committed to their transition, right? The Jeffrey Marsh, the thing that happened in the Loudoun County, right? It is those instances, right? And the fact that it was like it's becoming like a social contagion, right? To where they're putting it in schools and they're putting books in schools. It's also what's responsible for this rise in Christianity. You have like 1 in 5 kids now that are saying that they believe in God and they're turning to Christian things. You have like Gwen Stefani coming out and doing a thing with Halo, right? Recently,
Russell Brand.
I think that part of that is because of the fact that it's a rejection of what people feel like is obvious reality, right? So the idea that a man can become a woman can become a man.
They can't define the word woman.
True.
Right.
I personally, my take is, look, society can deal with trans people like fairly easily.
I never cared.
It's not an actual problem, and the demand by the far left, again, the progressives, not people that are more of a Democrat kind of persuasion. I think that they demand that you think of them as women. The progressives, the really extreme, ideologically possessed people will, and this is a minority. This is a minority. Hold on. It's
when y'all go that long.
Well, there's 3 of us. I understand you're in a rough spot.
Yeah, you
there
are.
Three,
I'll let him go and then I'll wait.
But the point that I'm making is when you're dealing with people that are on the far, far left, not the average Democrat, saying things like, no, there's no difference between a biological woman and a trans woman. They're both biologically women.
I don't know who said
The Missouri congressperson said that.
I think most people understand biological sex versus your gender identity, but
that I agree with you. Most people. That's why I specified the people that are extremely progressive and stuff.
And why
like
is the
that.
tagline "trans women are women"?
Right.
Because they want because the far left is who is actually making the rhetoric.
They're the
trans women
loudest.
are trans women. Like that's fine. You're trans women are trans women.
But then
You're not a woman.
Right.
If they're existing in society in every meaningful way other than if you knew way too intimately their biological details,
it doesn't matter.
We're all going to treat them like women.
Stop
we'll call them
telling me
women.
that I have to lie.
But then why do I have to go in when I'm getting a lactation
yeah.
consultant to like breastfeed my kid and they call it chest feeding?
And also
I'm
people
clearly
Oh
a
my
biological
gosh.
woman.
I'm gonna go
That's
through some
annoying.
of this. So one of the things that happens, I think the best friend of MAGA is like the super uber, I don't know what you would call them, like the extreme end of the left, okay? Because they provide these nice semi-attached to reality, but kind of straw men people that y'all can engage with. And what I mean is, it's not that these things aren't a thing. Like I talked about the bathroom thing. I think Nancy Mace is being psychotic with her obsession over one trans member of Congress where she goes to the restroom. She wasn't going to go to that restroom anyways. But I know these things exist, and I'm happy to talk about them as sort of cultural issues and social media discussions, but I don't think they exist in the way they impact people's lives, like the policy issues I'm focused on most of the time. And the policy issues that most prominent Democrats are focused on, like politicians. Wait, but what Republicans often do is like, if the Republican line, Trump wants to come in and give big tax cuts, his last one's disproportionately benefited wealthy folks, and then he wants to do these tariffs that will spike prices. And if he actually was really clear and transparent about what he wants to do, then I don't think people would vote for Republicans as much because their economic agenda is trash. They have a worse economic record over the last century. But instead, it has to be, don't look at that. Look at all of these other niche cultural issues, like a trans person you're probably never going to notice yourself interacting with.
All right, but it's my turn.
And then so that's a big part of this. I wish y'all would engage with what Kamala Harris was actually running on. You can go look at all of her speeches. It wasn't about trans bathrooms.
She literally said multiple times that she would provide money for trans prisoners to get it changed.
Okay.
So that is something that
there it is again. You're doing it again. You found a clip that wasn't from her presidential campaign. That was. It might have been from like her one way.
It doesn't matter.
Wait.
It doesn't matter. She said it.
That was a Trump administration era policy that he was abiding by as well. But my point is, just listen for a second.
It's my turn.
That's what y'all do instead of engaging with her actual policy proposals, which were mostly economic ones to bring down prices, enhance child tax credit, small business related tax breaks. That's what she was running on a pro-freedom platform, and that's what I resonated with. And what y'all will do is only engage with like the online wokesters instead of engaging with the fact that Democrats really do have a better economic agenda than Republicans, which I'll argue until I'm blue in the face.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.